Before we continue this episode, got a quick favor. Like, share, do whatever you got to do to spread the love of the RR show, and give us a 5-star review so more people across the lovely internets can enjoy this show. By the way, the name is Vince. We've got a show today, and he's got it after this. I'm just giving the intro here. Posted by user Dipshit Patrol. Woman tried to get my 14-year-old and 7-year-old sisters arrested for taking out the trash.
This happened today while me, 20 female, my mum, 39, and 2 sisters, 14 and 7, were cleaning out our yard. For context, we live in a smaller, older-looking house on a relatively gentrified street with a lot of small to medium-sized but high-end apartment buildings. It's still the same neighborhood despite them being 3 to 5-story buildings with underground parking. So we have 2 big metal dumpsters in the neighborhood, one at the start of the neighborhood and one near the end. We live near the middle of the neighborhood, so my mum decided to just request a private bin from the government to place outside our own gate, as to not have to walk too much to throw away our trash when we were busy. Well, let's just say, after 5 years of rough treatment from the government waste collection company, it gave its last service, and we had to request replacements, which took a few days. In the meantime, we had to take turns, walking to the dumpster on either side to throw out our trash. It's never a problem, and shouldn't be, because it's all of our taxes that pay for waste collection anyway. My mum sent both of my sisters to throw a bag of yard cuttings to any of the dumpsters, and they decided to go to the one near the start of the neighborhood for once. It's alright, my mum says okay and stays near the gate to keep an eye on them while I continue to clean the porch. A few minutes later, I can hear my mum start yelling, then running in the direction that my sisters went in, and I nearly died thinking something horrible had happened, so I followed her. At the start of the neighborhood were my sisters, near the dumpster that was off to the side of the building, and a woman was full-on screaming at them from her second-floor balcony, with her husband just watching from the sliding door. I couldn't hear what the lady was saying as of yet, but I did hear when my mum started tearing the lady a new one from in front of my sisters when she got there. My mum's a bit of a hothead, and while I am too, she tends to make irrational decisions more, and her English begins to slip up. English is her second language, which makes it hard to get the points across or understood. So as usual, I walk up and take over and tell her to calm down while I deal with the Karen. My mum pulled back my sisters to the other side of the road, and I looked up to the dumbass on the second floor. "What in the world are you saying, ma'am? You can't throw your trash there, I'm gonna give you the fucking trash collection bill." "Ma'am, this is a public neighborhood dumpster. I pay to live in this neighborhood, and for this trash collection, you can't throw your shit in there unless you pay for it to be picked up." At this point, I'm utterly confused on whether she was stupid and didn't see the big, fat government stamp painted on the side of the dumpster. "Ma'am, we live in this neighborhood too." She then makes the mistake of ignoring me and looking towards my sisters at the other side of the street and begins to yell her head off. "Both of you take your trash you threw in our dumpster now, or I'm calling the fucking police!" My sisters are 7 and 14. She wanted to call the police on them, which immediately set my mum off again. I was quite irritated. "Shut up, I'm their mum, you talk to me or you haul your ass back into your apartment." Go home." But this lady is just obviously screaming and pulls out her cell phone, repeating that she's going to call the police and make us pay for trash collection. I immediately lost my patience. "Well, call them then. Get it over with. Call them and tell them that you want them to arrest a 14-year-old and a 7-year-old for putting trash in a dumpster." The lady seemed taken back but began directing this at me. "I'll have them lock you all up. You're polluting the neighborhood and dumping trash where you don't pay for the service. Take that trash out of the dumpster before I come and break all your faces." "You don't pay for the waste company either. Call the police and tell them all this before I do." That made the husband finally step in and pull her back into the apartment, while she screamed. He came outside by himself while we heard crashing and slamming inside the apartment. You don't have to take the trash back out the dumpsters, just don't do it again. That made me even more irritated, but I took a few deep breaths. Why can't I throw my trash here, in the public neighborhood dumpster, funded by my tax dollars just the same as it's funded by yours? The man had the audacity to snort and shake his head. I don't know about your people, sweetheart. Don't lie to us. It clicked on what the fuck the both of them were insinuating. You piece of absolute shit! Do not pretend to know anything about me or my family whatsoever. Keep in mind, this is at like 10 AM on a Monday and the street was not empty. So the few people going about their business had been stunned by the argument, and a neighbor had already called the police about a public disturbance. The police drive a huge, expensive Ford truck that they spent all their money on to get because of course they did. This is a developing country after all. And boy, did that whole story of me, my family, the crazy bitch and her husband, and a few neighbors had to recount, did not go well for this crazy bitch. Especially when they had to step into the apartment building manager's office to review the security footage. Which was even worse for the crazy bitch and her husband because the apartment manager was appalled and didn't say a single word to anyone other than the police until she slipped aside and called the owner of the building. Let's just say that my 14 and 7-year-old sisters did not end up taking an air-conditioned ride in the backseat of a police Ford to the station to be charged with threats against a minor and public disturbance. And neither did they get an immediate eviction notice for breaking their lease agreement while their wife went off to solidify her criminal record screaming at police officers. People really can be absolutely batshit crazy nowadays. Our next story is from Nikolai. I cut ties with my sister, her family, and my husband's family because they think they're entitled to my husband's paycheck. Okay, this needs a whole history of context. Me, 48 female, my sister, 56 female, and I always had a rocky relationship. Her husband, 61 male, and my husband, 50 male, are brothers. So we've always had that distinct closeness. Due to poverty, I only graduated from a 2-year course. My husband is the successful one in the whole family, basically. He graduated from college with a Bachelor of Science in Marine Engineering degree and is now a chief engineer. He works overseas while I manage a small store at home. Meanwhile, my sister and her husband didn't graduate. Their source of income had always been from selling fruit shakes in front of schools. It wasn't a steady income, but their daily needs are still met. Since I and my husband have the capacity to help, I've asked my husband to help my relatives. He agreed, and now we've financed the education of more than 10 people. Relatives, neighbors, children, people we hire as help. Aside from that, we also helped my sister's family with everything we can, even on demand. Back in 1999, I was pregnant with my first child. We used to live in a small town far from the nearest hospital, which was kilometers away in a city. So my husband and I decided to move into the city to be near basic commodities like schools, hospitals, and markets. There were markets and schools in the small town, by the way. The city just had better accommodations. My sister was livid when I told her the news of us, just me since my husband's overseas, moving to the city. She reasoned that what about her family? Their income won't let them survive that long. She already had a 5th child then. I was so stressed and weeks passed by that I forgot it was the 9th month of my pregnancy. On December 6th, I hurried to the hospital. My friend already agreed that I'd be staying in their house for now. The next day, my first child was born. I asked my cousin and my friend to fetch my belongings from the house because I'd already decided to move to the city for my baby. When my friend and cousin went to the house and fetched my clothes, my sister went on a tantrum. She threw all my clothes outside and said, I hope she died at birth. I was devastated, of course, when I heard that. But life went on and I forgave her. Years later, I already had my second child. My sister's second child was about to go to college, so I financed her education. She wasn't able to finish college because of her choices. I brushed that off despite having to buy the things she needed for her school. Years later, her third child was ready to go to college. Now this is where things started to go south. My niece, let's call her Rihanna, 32 female, during her second year in college started to date. She was a lesbian and started dating this girl a few blocks from our house. Oh, by the way, we moved to another city still close to our hometown. My niece lived with us during this time. I was pregnant with the third child. Little did I know, my niece would go out at night, leaving the gate open. She would go clubbing with her girlfriend. I only found this out when my cousin told me that the gate was open one night. I scolded her about this. This was also the time I found out about her relationship. I told her that it was fine that she started dating, but I want her to focus on her studies, which means her girlfriend can't be in the house to be a distraction, and she can't go clubbing either. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I called her mother, but instead of apologizing to me, she got angry and told me to get off my niece's love life. She can do whatever she wants. I was offended, of course. What if she gets into trouble? What if she gets hurt? Who would be accountable for this? Me? We had months of quarrel over this. My niece graduated around 2013 to 2014. I found out I had breast cancer. I was devastated, of course. I had surgery and went to chemotherapy. During this time, another one of my brothers-in-law had a medical emergency. While I was in chemo, I also helped him with his disease. I don't know exactly the reason why, but my sister's husband gathered his brothers and sisters, not including my husband, and plotted something against me. I heard that my brother-in-law actually said verbatim when he found out I got out of surgery, "So, is she dead?" I don't know what they were plotting. They invited me to come, but I didn't go. All I know is that they think I'm hogging my husband's money for myself. Yeah, you read that right. They said as siblings they have rights to my husband's paycheck, which by the way goes to our joint account. The whole scenario just dug the hole deeper. Okay, let's consider this and let's enumerate the things that have transpired over the years. I financed my sister's fourth daughter's college education where she got pregnant and married a man we don't know. Her mother defended her. My first son is going to college, and since I don't want him to go alone in a city away from me, I hired my sister to help her nephew for a weekly $55 salary. Rihanna saw this as me making her mother a help or some kind of servant. She went on a rant on social media. This led to another fight between me and my sister, and then again, I forgave them. My terminally ill father-in-law was in my sister's care when Rihanna posted on Facebook asking for help, hinting that my father-in-law's children, despite being engineers and professionals, aren't helping. My husband got offended, and so did I, since we financed my father-in-law's medicines, and they were asking for an oxygen tank, which was scarce at the time because of COVID-19. At that point, I'd had enough. I'd had enough of their demands. I'd had enough of their bickering. I just had enough. So the last time my sister and I spoke, I told her to never contact me again. And if a rift between us is what they want, well, I'll give it to them. I said that our relationship as sisters is severed and I don't want anything to do with them. My sister got offended by this and lectured me about family values and whatnot. Till now, I've still not talked to her or her family. I did still speak to my brother-in-laws and sister-in-law, but only for a brief moment. Our next story is from Gas According. Sister demands $50,000 of my time from my job. I'm an accountant at a Big Four firm, yellow line for those that know. And my sister is a stay-at-home mum with 3 kids. I'm 27 years old, have no kids, and make $135 Canadian a year in salary. The way my job works is I get billed out to clients at a specific rate, and then my firm pays me my salary. Being an accountant, I get a pretty good view of all things business related. My entitled sister wants to start a business. Great, that will provide them with some extra income since supporting 3 kids on a single income can be very difficult. It was February, and I was in the thick of busy season. The time leading up to when all the public audits are due essentially. It's long, 12 to 15-hour days for months at a time. My sister decided to get her business plan up and running, and she needed some help. I told her I would not be able to help her until May. Oh, this wasn't a good enough answer for her. She wanted to get the funding for her business for April so she could start setting up operations in May. She demanded that I work after work for free, building her a business plan, building out controls that I would eventually have to implement, designing business processes, and then getting her the funding from the bank that she wanted for the business. I shrugged it off. Until she called my boss. She called my boss, a very lovely but serious managing partner, asking if I could get some time off in the middle of busy season to help her start her business. My boss's number is public on the firm's website, so that's how she got it. This is not okay. My boss came to my office and told me what happened, and told me that if I wanted a vacation, I needed to give them more notice and that usually it wasn't approved. I was confused because I didn't request any time off. He said my sister called, and I knew exactly what she had done. I was fuming, gagged, gooped, and guffawed, to say the least. I called her up. I told her to never call my work to try and get me time off in the middle of my busiest time of year. She was super angry I couldn't help her. She ended up going to my mum, a retired chartered accountant, for help. She's retired and doesn't want to work anymore unless she's getting her pay rate from when she was working, which is approximately $1,625 an hour. At the family dinner we have on Sunday, she brings up the fact that nobody in the family is willing to help her get her business off the ground. My mum mentioned that she couldn't afford her rate, in a way meaning she didn't want to do the work because she is retired. I told her that I couldn't take 2 weeks off from my life to get her whole business off the ground and ready for operations. I would be able to do it part-time in the spring or summer for opening the next spring. She didn't like that answer, again. I told her that I can sign her through my firm first thing Monday morning, but she'd have to pay the $50,000 retainer and signing fee. She explodes and leaves, and agreed to have me work on it for free in the spring and summer. I didn't say it was going to be free. I was going to do it for a heavily discounted rate of $45 to $50 an hour, not the $650 that my firm charges.
We really appreciate you being with us on today's show. The RR Show is a production of Evergreen Podcast and Wessler Media. Now, if you'd be so kind, follow or subscribe to the show if you haven't already. And if you also haven't done already, please leave us a very nice 5-star review. Thanks, Mom. Also, for more, you can visit rrshow.com. That's rrshow.com. I'm your host, Vince. My producer, Kevin, thank you. We'll see you next time.